Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 26th day of November in the year 2024. Sure hope you're enjoying your Tuesdays. No matter where you are in the country, of course, here in the Northeast, 57 degrees. The sun looked like it was trying to come out for a second. Excuse me for 1 second. So hopefully you're enjoying the day no matter where it is you are. And as you do each and every Tuesday, you welcome me into your homes so that I might bring you this week's news. And we will continue this week with a continuation of what we have been talking about a lot over the last couple of days, including the case involving Juan Barroso. And I'm going to put something up on the screen here, okay? As most of you know, Juan has been suspended now for close to 9 months, and as of November 14th, his medical insurance was canceled by the town of Kearney. When his medical insurance was canceled, that then made it impossible for him to purchase baby formula for his brand new baby, his newborn son. And the formula, from what we have been told, because he has an allergy to regular formula, costs about $400 per week, $1,600 per month. Do the math. It all adds up. And unceremoniously, the insurance was canceled a couple of weeks ago. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because I've been doing a lot of thinking about this case, Juan's case, and some of the reasons why he was suspended. And you can see on the screen that I have a copy here of his original suspension notice, which is dated the 12th day of March in the year 2024. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip to the next page here. This is the first page of the notice of preliminary disciplinary action that was filed against him to the Civil Service Commission in the state of New Jersey by the chief of the fire department. And I'm gonna break a few of these things down to you because as I've had more and more time, some of this stuff just absolutely reeks, and you'll see why in a second. The first thing that he is cited for having violated says right here, it's if you're looking on the screen and you can see it. If you're watching on a phone or on a tablet, it may not be easy. If you're on your TV or if you're on a computer or laptop, it might be easier to see, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, on or around November 2nd, 2023, Juan Barroso utilized his Town of Kearney computer and spent time while on duty for the Town of Kearney Fire Department to complete work, online training courses, for his fire department, for his position as a special law enforcement officer type 2 with the Township of Fairfield Police Department. Further, it was determined that while on duty, Juan answered emails not only for the Fairfield Police Department, but also answered emails for his position as the fire official for the borough of East Newark. Now, there are two things that really stick out about those first two paragraphs in this allegation. The first one is the date, November 2nd, 2023. Is the date that was first released or where he's first accused of doing something wrong. We'll get into those bullet points in a minute. But what I never realized was that was 4 days after the parade of 2023. 4 days after this. It was October 28th, 2023, or 5 days. So isn't it interesting that these charges are levied based on things that were to have occurred just a couple of days after the parade when Juan was berated by the former mayor of the town of Kearney? There's something very sinister about the timing of that I didn't really realize until just a couple of days ago when I was rereading through this. But then it got me thinking a little bit more. Juan Barroso was accused of using his Town of Kearney computer to take a training course for his position as an SLEO2 for Fairfield and for answering emails not only for the Fairfield Police Department but for the borough of East Newark, where he serves as the fire official. Folks, I want you to think about this for a moment. In the town of Kearney, there are several people who have positions that are for the town of Kearney and in other locations in Hudson County. And so what's very, very interesting is that this is being used as a matter of discipline against Juan for checking his emails for East Newark and for Fairfield while he was on duty in the town of Kearney. But he is hardly, he would hardly be the only person in Kearney or who is employed by the town of Kearney who has multiple positions where checking email for another job is more than possible. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of that. In her position as the mayor of the town of Kearney, Carol Jean Doyle also is the clerk to the Hudson County Board of Commissioners. Do you mean to tell me, or do you think that in the time that she operates as the clerk to the Board of Commissioners that she has not answered emails for the town of Kearney? George Zapata works in the law department in Hudson County. Do you mean to tell me that at no point while he is on the clock for the county, he hasn't answered emails relative to the town of Kearney? You see where I'm going here with this, folks? It is not a big deal that Mayor Carol Jean Doyle or George Zapata, or before those two, Mayor Alberto Santos, when he was the mayor of the town of Kearney and also serving as the clerk to the Board of Commissioners, the Hudson County Board of Commissioners, he would have been answering emails, I'm sure, as well, on his Hudson County computer for the town of Kearney. My point to this is that none of those three people, the aforementioned people, were ever cited as having broken their obligation to the town of Kearney for answering emails while on duty. But Juan was. Juan was on page number 2 of this disciplinary report, that he used his computer to take an online learning course, and that he checked his emails for the borough of East Newark and for the Fairfield Police Department. So I question this simply and say, if this is an issue for Juan, why were none of these other people ever disciplined for doing similar? And I don't think I need to tell you, without even having any kind of proof, that I'm sure it's happened over time. And again, I'm not to say that any of these people are doing something wrong, because it's just a matter of when you have multiple jobs, things are going to get crisscrossed. But if you're going to use this as a reason to potentially get rid of one, and you know that there are other people who are doing this, and I'm sure I've mentioned 3 people. I'm sure there are others. I know there are other people who have had multiple jobs. Shoaib Farazvi, the CFO, before he resigned from East Newark, Tony Cesari was the inspector in Kearney and East Newark. The health officer, Annie McNair, has positions in Kearney and Bayonne, and I believe somewhere in North Hudson as well. None of those people have been cited for checking emails while working for the town of Kearney, but Juan Barroso has been. So tell me where that makes sense, or where that is anywhere remotely fair. The report continues. Mr. Barroso additionally utilized the town of Kearney copier at fire headquarters for personal reasons for the past 9 years for fundraising events. Juan admitted to that. He said that he indeed did make copies for Camp Fatima. But if this was happening for 9 years, why did it take until March of 2023 or 2024 for this to be an issue? Why didn't the chief ever complain about this in those years leading up to 2024? And why didn't the chief's predecessor complain about any of this up for the past 9 years? And I'll give you the answer, because it's not a big deal. But these are all the body of what is supposed to be being done to ensure that Juan loses his job. So again, where was all this furor for 9 years? You think you just found out? And if you did just find out that for 9 years he was making these copies, you're lying, because you know very well he's made these copies before, and he bought the paper that he used. And can you find me anybody who has not used a photocopier in their office for personal reasons, please? If they tell you they haven't, they are lying to you, because everybody does. Everybody does. Now, this is where things get really, really hairy. In this report, and I'm going to tell you why I'm showing you this report too, because it's I'm going to get into it in more detail, but earlier I went back to an email where Councilwoman Eileen Eckel accused me of making this up without facts, and I've got the reports here. Okay, I have it all here. So anything I ever said back in July when I was at a council meeting, I have the reports, although she claims I lied, but you see it right here. It says that when questioned by the fire chief regarding his conduct, specifically whether he performed or did any work or any training related to his employment with another municipality while being paid or while on duty for Kearney, he lied to the chief and denied working for another municipality. The facts demonstrate that Juan's answers were false and untrue. I would wager to say that when he was asked this question, he did not ask him about training. I would say he perform duties and did not say training related to the employment, and then that's a late addition. Because I have spoken with Juan about this probably 100 times, and every single time he has said that when he was asked the question, he thought he was answering it truthfully. But then it popped into his head that he did take these NJ Learn classes, and of course, wouldn't think that would be performing duties, taking a class. But again, this is what's being hung up on. And also, they're hung up on the fact that he lied when he didn't lie. He thought he was answering truthfully at the time, but they're hung up on this. And this, of course, last paragraph is the doozy of all doozies. I want to remind everybody that he is charged with attending a funeral service and was absent from duty without permission on November 6, 2023. That was the funeral for Charlie Ty, the former East Newark councilman and former fire chief. The Kearney fire chief sent out an email to all members to let them know what the details of the funeral were. Nobody in those emails, from what I've been told, I have not seen them, said anything about asking for permission to go. Juan does not work the line. He's not out fighting fires. He attended the wake for Charlie Ty, the funeral. The chief shook his hand, and he's still charging him with being absent without permission on November 6, 2023. You see how this all just kind of adds up? You see how this all adds up? It is just unfathomable. And I'm going to keep talking about it until somebody, I don't know who it is the person who has the authority to make this stop. Is it the mayor? Is it the business administrator? Is it anybody? Is anybody willing to realize what a circus this is? And that the person who we're talking about here and all these violations is not only a waste of time, but an absolute travesty of justice. And now you may ask, okay, why did you show this? I'm going to show you right now, okay? I'm going to show you this right now. as a reminder, this was from last year's Parade 2023, and you see that there are numbers 1 through 8 on this screen. 1 is Tom Eckel, 2 is Susan McCurry, 3 is George Zapata, 4 Dennis Solano, 5 is Eileen Eckel, 6 is Status Theodoropoulos, 7 is former Mayor Peter Santana, and number 8 is Juan Barroso. In the month of July, I admittedly was angry because a lot of this was going on. And I was at a council meeting, and at the council meeting, I used some choice language to describe the chief, the fire chief. I called him a piece of shit, in quotation marks. And in addressing former Councilman Renato da Silva, I did indeed call him an insufferable asshole, I think was the words that I used. We'll see, I got the exact words in here. But Councilwoman Eckel, who was present at the parade in 2023, Mr. Zapata, who was there, Mr. Solano, who was there, and Mr. Theodoropoulos, who was also there, wrote a letter to my boss, Lisa Fiorenzo, as if I would not have told Lisa what happened at the meeting, which I did before this letter came through, to remind everybody that my statement disavowing the connection and speaking as a resident was wrong. Eileen Eckel goes on in the letter that says, your publication, your resources, and your reputation to advance his personal agenda has widened the gap of mistrust in the media. Using his position as the face and voice of your publication, he is sending a clear message that he will use his power over the content and delivery of the news and current events to influence the outcome of future elections, to slander and malign the characters of elected officials and dedicated town employees. His tirade was riddled with half-truths, intentional misinformation, and slanderous comments. Mrs. Eckel, I just read to you all the things that I said about that case. And you say they're half-truths? But yet I just put the proof up there. And that's what I had in front of me the day of that meeting in July, on July 16th. Okay. The governing body cannot comment on any ongoing litigation. I know that. As a reporter or journalist, the gathering of facts and details and providing balanced and truthful coverage is critical and protects the public from falsehood. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. In addition to threatening the fire chief, didn't threaten him, I called him a piece of crap. During the open session of the council meeting, he also accosted him in the hallway. Did not happen in the hallway, it was right there in the council chambers, in front of many, yes. Prior to that, in the council chambers, in the front row crowded around him, he shouted at Councilman Da Silva, calling him a pompous asshole. He is. And immediately thereafter pointed at Council President Eckel and said, why are you still here? She doesn't even know how things operate. I was saying, why are you still here? You lost the election. You should have resigned. That's what I said to him. Now, during his time at the microphone at the open session, he spoke directly to the governing body saying, you have influence to have the chief withdraw these charges. This is troubling on multiple levels, but certainly is the very thing he suggests is the underlying cause of the issue itself. He states that we should use our influence to sidestep the rules, procedures, and legal actions that guide civil service proceedings. The mayor and council are not involved in personnel issues. This ensures that decisions are made by independent hearing officers that decide the outcome through testimony and evidence. He further said, if you don't do the right thing, the five of you up for re-election next year, and I will make it my life's mission to make sure you will not be reelected. But Eileen, I mean, the picture here proves that you were there when your former colleague was yelling and screaming at Mr. Barroso. And what did you do to intervene that day? Absolutely nothing. In fact, you stood there and watched as it happened. And for months, nobody knew if you were there, but now the proof is right there that you were standing right there. And you didn't do a thing. You didn't try to stop it. You didn't tell Peter to stop, or at least attempt to have him stop. You watched it. You watched it. So if you want to talk about my conduct on becoming a member of the press, I'm going to talk about your conduct as an elected official. Why didn't you stop that unfortunate event? Why didn't you say something to help Juan when he was being berated by the former interim mayor of the town of Kearney? Why did you just stand there and let it happen? Those are questions I'd like to know. And I've thought about it until I realized that you attacked me and this newspaper for the way I handled a couple of personal matters. You were acting officially as a member of the council that day when Juan was being berated. And what did you do? To quote former President Donald Trump, you stood back and you stood by and you watched. It's unbelievable, but you did. So maybe the time is here to do some introspective recollection about your own actions and how little you've done. Or maybe, just maybe, since you did stand by that day, you support what's happening to Juan. Maybe that's the biggest problem here. And don't think for a moment that political influence doesn't operate in this town, because it does. I can tell you without hesitation, having spoken to several elected officials in other towns, that if this were the town of Harrison, this case would have been dropped months ago. If this had happened in North Arlington, this case would have been dropped months ago. That's where leadership is. What are we getting? We're getting a man who has not had a paycheck in 9 months, who cannot afford his baby formula. But don't worry. We're watching. We are all watching, and we all know what's coming up in 2025 and 2026. You're lucky you're not up till 2026. We won't forget, and I'm going to keep bringing this up. So if you think this is going away, you can write another letter to Lisa, and you could say that I was a bad boy today, and I said mean things about you. The problem is, everything I said is factual. I have never told a lie. I never will tell a lie at this microphone. And that's the reality. It is 2 o'clock. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will get to this week's edition of The Observer, including a very interesting thing that happened. Mike Dolaghan, the councilman from the town of Harrison, has retired after 32 years on the council. All right, stand by. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Sometimes we know what's next.
Next.
Other times, it's impossible to know what's next. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops.
Call 911. Call 911.
Call 911.
Knowing CPR takes you from bystander to lifesaver. Join the Nation of Lifesavers by learning CPR at heart.org/nation today and be the next lifesaver.
It is 2 minutes past the hour. Kevin Canessa here with you on The Observer Live. And as I mentioned before we went to the break, Councilman Mike Dolaghan has resigned his office as the 4th Ward Councilman in the town of Harrison, and he also resigned his job with the Board of Education. And I was really stunned because it was yesterday morning. He walked into the Observer's office and he handed me a manila envelope and he said, "Kevin, it's time." I knew exactly what he was going to tell me. And Mike went through a lot last year. He did. He had major heart surgery and lost a considerable amount of weight. But he's doing well now. But at 75, I guess sometimes the time comes and he decided to pack it in. And it's going to be very difficult to fill his shoes. It really will be. It'll be interesting to see who they pick, if they're able to pick anybody. And he's still got 3 years left on his term, so there's going to have to be a special election for the 3-year term. 3 years left on the term, but Mike is a friend, and I want to wish him the best as he goes off into retirement. And he will be a very, very difficult shoes to fill because he worked very, very hard for the people of Harrison, not just for the 4th Ward, but for the entire town of Harrison. He really did, and he is a class act that will be hard to replace. Coming up next week, it is the holiday tree lighting, Christmas tree lighting in the town of Kearney, and of course the public is invited, and there's a festival, a lot of music, all sorts of entertainment and goodies for the kids. So please make plans for that. You'll get all the information in this week's edition of The Observer if you check that out. The Hudson County Prosecutor's Office recently opened up a brand new state-of-the-art DNA lab, and it's going to make life so much easier for the detectives who have major crimes to solve, especially when it comes to needing DNA evidence right at their fingertips at Sea Caucus. They won't have to send out DNA tests to labs throughout the state anymore, and this was part of the forward thinking of Hudson County Prosecutor Esther Suarez. It really puts them on the cutting edge as far as investigative reasons, and it'll certainly benefit the Kearney, Harrison, and East Newark police departments if there are any crimes that occur here that require DNA evidence. So well done by Prosecutor Esther Suarez getting this DNA lab, state-of-the-art, set up in Sea Caucus. Craig Guy, the county executive, has set up a task force for affordable housing. I think anybody who knows anything about what's going on in this world right now knows that rents are incredibly high and are just out of control in so many ways. So the county executive set up a task force to address that issue. The only thing that I find any fault with here is that there is not a single person from West Hudson on this task force. It would have been nice to have one representative from either Harrison, Kearney, or East Newark, but that's wishful thinking. But still very good that the county executive is addressing a major issue in Hudson County. Of course, we have a print story here about what we just talked about in the first segment here about Juan's situation, so please check that out when you get a chance. A couple of other items, one from the North Arlington Police Department, where 2 guys kept shoplifting from the Dollar General store but eventually got caught, and this from the Belleville Historical Society as they honored Veterans Day in memory of a World War I soldier who died while in port from England here in New York when he died, and he's buried in Hudson County. Tough ending to the season for the Blue Tide. Harrison's soccer team lost a tough game in double overtime on Sunday night. But a tremendous season for Mike Russick and his team. Jason Bernstein has that and 2 other sports stories as well this week. So please check those out. And don't forget, as we do each and every week, the classifieds are packed this week. And there are a lot of rentals. So if you need a new place to live, you have a lot of choices. Just hope you have the type of funds because the rents are so high, as you know. But there are plenty of different things to choose from. So check it out in this week's edition of The Observer in the classifieds on pages 16 and 17. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for today's edition of The Observer Live. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today, as you do each and every week. We will be back 1 week from today. Of course, our offices will be closed on Thursday and Friday in observance of Thanksgiving. And if I may say so, to all of you who are out here watching and who read us. I am grateful. I know Lisa, Bob, Michelle, Kimmy, we're all so grateful for the loyalty that you show to us each and every day by reading this newspaper, by watching this video, by reading us online. We are so lucky to have the audience that we do. And I want to say on behalf of Lisa, Tina, Bob, Michelle, and myself, happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. May it be a time of peace and joy for everyone. From the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, it's Kevin Canessa signing off for now, and we hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.